Well, today we have a special guest with us, Courtney Godfrey. Courtney is a wonderful person, along with her husband, Ryan, that my wife and I have been able to meet. I'm going to have Courtney come up in just a few moments, but I want to kind of set the stage for where we're going. So we've been talking about this idea of clean slate. And now here's what we talked about is that God wants to give us this clean slate from our past, from our pain, from regret, from the things that we've walked through, been through, things that we've done or things that have been done to us. And we talked about three types of regret. There's the regret of action. There's that moment where you kind of hit your head and you're like, why did I do that? Why did I say that? Regret of action. Then there's the regret of inaction where you're kind of like, why didn't I say that? Why didn't I do that? And then the most common one is the regret of reaction. How many of you have fallen victim to that one just today? Yeah, many of us. What happens is that reaction is when we feel like we're being attacked or we feel like somebody's coming at us, we react and all of a sudden sometimes it's not in a good way. Rather than responding, we're reacting to things and oftentimes it comes and leads us to a place of regret. So we've been talking about that all month long. If you're a guest of ours here today, we're so excited that you're here. Make sure that you check out online, northstarcommunity.org. You could check it out and follow along with the whole series that we have been in. And so the big idea for today as we close out this series, the big idea is that God wants to take your story of pain and regret and turn it into a story of redemption. And God wants to take your story of pain and regret and turn it into a story of redemption. Now, the word redemption means to exchange or to use. Now, if I was to take my Chick-fil-A gift card because I sat in the front row, Now, if I wanted to go redeem it, be our guest, Chick-fil-A, chicken sandwich, I can go redeem this at Chick-fil-A. Not today because it's Sunday, the Lord's Day. They're closed. Frustrated on that one. Right? Now's the time you want to celebrate the Lord? Seriously. Son, Chick-fil-A. So I take this card, but in order for me to redeem this card, I have to use it. I've got to give it to the person, the employee there at Chick-fil-A. And so when I take it, they give me something back of greater value, which is that chicken sandwich. No pickles, add cheese and bacon, please. That's the way I like it. Throw a little spice on it, make it happen, Captain. And so they give me all I have to do is give them this card and I redeem it, but I have to let go of it. It's one of those things if I just go, hey, here, I just want to get that chicken sandwich. No, I want to get the chicken sandwich, but that's the one I want. So I got a free coupon for a free chicken sandwich and I want that. And they're like, well, give it to me. It's like, no, I want it. Well, you have to give me that and then I can give you the sandwich. Well, can I just get the sandwich first? I want the sandwich. Give me this. How about I hold on to this? And then if I do that I'm not able to redeem it. And so I wrote this down just for us today, that it's the same way with God. When you give him your past, when you give him your pain, when you give him your story, he gives you something back of greater value. He uses it. So in order for something to be redeemed, God says, listen, I want to redeem what happened in your life. I want to redeem the situation, the story, the past, the pain, things that were done to you, things that were done by you. I want to redeem those things, but in order for me to redeem them, you're going to have to turn it in. You have to give it to the right person, to the right place. As a matter of fact, on the back of this card, it says redeemable at Chick-fil-A, Coon Rapids at Riverdale. You can't take this to the wrong place. You got to take it to the right place. And it's the same thing that when we have our past, our pain, our story, our situation, that we turn it over to the right person, which is God. And God says, listen, if you give me those things, if you give me the things that you struggle with, the things that you're walking through, then what I'll do is I'll redeem it. I'll use it if you give it. I'll give you something back of greater value. And until I'm willing to let go of it, it can't be redeemed. And that's why many people stay stuck in their past, their pain, their situation, the things that they've walked through. And it's hard for them to get past those things because in order for them to get past it, they've got to give it to the right person. And when God takes it, he says, man, I'll take that. I'll use that. I'll use your story and I'll use your pain. I'll use your past. I'll use what you've been through. And I believe that God can take our messes in life, the things that we've gone through in life. God can take the mess in our life, and over time, If you take a steak and you want to marinate that thing, it's got to age a little bit. And here's what happens is all of a sudden our mess plus some time, and God creates a message through that moment. God can take the messes in our life and over time with age create a message that begins to do something in people's lives. We see this all throughout Scripture. And we see that where God does this in the story of David, where we've been talking about that over the last couple of weeks. And David writes about this in Psalms 51. He's writing about this whole moment where he messed up and has this affair with this woman. And there's this moment in Psalms 51 where David is writing and he said, God, forgive me of this. Psalms 51 verse 1, have mercy on me, O God. Forgive me, cleanse me. Verse 11, take not your spirit from me. He knew that he needed the Spirit's power to help him move beyond his past and his pain. And it's after that moment that God calls David a man after God's own heart. David writes about it in Psalms 51. I mean, here's the great part is God redeems his story and God begins to use it. And I really enjoyed looking up and kind of just discovering a little bit more about David's story here through Psalms 51. But if you look at the genealogy of Christ in Matthew chapter 1, you think about this, how could God use David's story? I mean, he had an affair. He basically murdered one of his military guys, Bathsheba's husband, Uriah. How did this all work out? Well, then all of a sudden we read about it in Matthew chapter 1, where it's the genealogy of Jesus, and we find out that actually David and Bathsheba are in the story of Jesus' birth. God redeems it. Why? To save the lives of many people through his son Jesus. We know the most common verse, which would be about the story of Joseph, where his brothers sell him into slavery, and then he eventually becomes the number 2 in command for Pharaoh. There's a famine in the land where Joseph's family lived, and all of a sudden, Joseph saves the day. And he's standing in front of his brothers who had just sold him into slavery. He's standing in front of them, and he goes through this whole process. And then his brothers realize who he is. And Joseph says this in Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. You'll see this up here on the screen. It says this, you intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. I love that last portion right there. God brought me to, listen, God didn't have this happen. My brother sold me into slavery, and he's looking at his brothers and saying, listen, you intended, not God, you intended to harm me, but here's what God did. God turned this story around, and now he's using it to save the lives of many people. We see that through the story of Joseph. We see that in the story of David. We see that throughout the Scripture where God redeems it, and he uses it. When you're willing to give it back to him, he's willing to use it and redeem it. One of the persons that Shannon and I have really got to know through this whole process was Courtney and Ryan, and we watched them walk through a tragic accident where Courtney had lost her leg. And matter of fact, there was a Sunday morning that I normally sit up here with my phone right here, and I'm preaching, and most of the time our staff will shoot me a message on my phone. Today I'm using it for Facebook Live, but most of the time our staff will shoot me a message, or one of you will send an emoji when I'm preaching, and I really enjoy that because it helps me with my ADD keep up with everything going on. And it's fun, it's awesome, it's amazing. But then all of a sudden I got a Twitter message, and I was up here and I was preaching, and I saw this message come in and said, I need your pastoral services. I was like, well, that's awesome. Trying to track this thing, and I was in a boating accident, lost my leg, and I thought, maybe this is a joke. And maybe some of you remember, because I was like, hey, where's this hospital? Which hospital were you at? HCM. I'm like, where's HCMC? Does anybody know where HCM? So I finished preaching. I didn't give it to everybody like this. I finished preaching. Then at the end, I found out where the hospital was, and I took off down there, met you guys, and kind of hung out for a little bit and prayed with you. And just to watch the journey that this couple has been on, where God has literally redeemed their situations. Courtney, I'm going to ask that you would come and hang out with us and share your story here today. Courtney, would you guys give it up for Courtney Godfrey? Let's see. Here we go. So while I'm stalling on that one, Courtney was actually just last week, you were at Morse By Elementary.
I was, yeah.
Where we are faith partners as a school. We are faith partners with Morse By Elementary. and Courtney got to share her story. And right back there is Gia. Come on, I see you right there. I saw you coming in looking all so pretty.
Hi, Gia.
Come on.
Now that's a strong little girl right there.
Yeah.
She's my girl.
Ah, come on. And you just won a competition, right?
Yeah, beauty pageant, right?
Woo! The
All
lights are bright.
right.
The lights are bright.
Hello, back
All right.
there.
Courtney, tell us a little bit about your story and
Yeah.
how you got to where you are today.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. John and Shannon are friends of ours and have been, so pivotal in my recovery. Always there for us. I think my story, it's long, but I'll abbreviate it for you. So I grew up right outside San Francisco. And, my parents, we went to church on Christmas and Easter, but didn't really grow up in a faith-based home. I mean, we said our prayers at night. I went to church twice a year. But in 4th grade, I said, I want to go to catechism. And my parents said, great. Go, please. That's awesome. And then I went to Catholic high school, and my faith really deepened. And then I met my husband. And my husband introduced me to these cool, new, modern churches where you would go and the sermon would resonate with you because they were talking, in English, unlike in the Catholic Church.
You could understand it a little bit.
Yeah, you could relate. And so, of course, I had to marry him. He really is a Prince Charming. He is everything that you want in a man and more. And we have a blessed life. We live in a beautiful home. We have a cute dog. We're healthy. We have an amazing family. We had it all. And then some, and then some. And then, we have this place that we go to the lake. We're always out at the lake, and it's kind of this place where we can go and get away. My husband grew up on this lake. We ski, we wakeboard. It's a part of who we are here. And then on September 15th, all that came to a crashing halt.
Yeah. And so there's the dog. I forgot the dog's name. Rocco?
Bruno. Come on, John.
Bruno.
Come
Man,
on.
Are you holding Bruno there? That's a stuffed animal, right?
It's a teddy bear.
That's a teddy bear. The only reason I asked that question...
When you're on a lot of pain meds, you kind of revert to being a child, so...
Well, Bruno was in the hospital, though.
He was, yeah.
I think you guys passed him for like a therapy dog or something. I don't know what you did.
I don't know what strings
Y'all lied.
Ryan
That's
pulled,
all I know. You lied. Bruno, I came in, and I'll never forget, I came to give you a hug, and Bruno, is this little...
Min pin.
Yeah, and that dog was going... I was like, never mind. I mean, I really thought he was going to eat my whole body. And so it was awesome, very protective of you. And so, so then you were in the hospital.
Yeah, so, I got to the hospital and my, not to be graphic, my foot was so damaged that there was no saving it. You go to the emergency room hoping that they can do something, and, they couldn't. And I don't think it really sank in that I was an amputee until that night after they closed everything up. I was in my hospital room, and my sister's laying next to me, and I just, I couldn't close my eyes, because when I closed my eyes, I went back to that place. I went back to the water. We were out on the lake, beautiful day, end of summer, probably one of our last days on the lake. And, my husband's behind the wheel, and we're going to head in and grill out, and he made a sharp turn, and I fell out. And, boat probably went right over me. The inboard propeller just clipped my leg, and I didn't know exactly what had happened when I was under the water. I just felt this, blunt force trauma. And when I came to it, I was underneath the boat, and I could hear that the boat was off, but I still thought, oh my God. It was the first time that I really, processed the propeller and thought about the propeller. And I swam forward, and I'll never forget when I came out of the water, and it felt like a half an hour that I had been in there. It was probably 30 seconds. I'll never forget the looks on their faces. My sister, my brother-in-law, my husband, standing there with this look of fear, but of relief that I surfaced.
Yeah.
And it was really, in the moment, I lifted up my leg, saw my foot, my sister tourniqueted my leg. I didn't lose any blood. It was the best situation that it could have been. And we're in the hospital, and my sister's next to me again, this girl who just saved my life, maybe, saved me from losing a lot of blood at least. And I looked at her and I said, I have no leg. And we just started crying. And the next morning, I woke up and was like, you know what? Can't change it. So I'm going to choose positivity because leg's not coming back. Can't turn it around, right. And when you're in this moment where everything has come crashing down, there are very few things that you have. You have family, if you're lucky. You have great friends, if you're lucky. But the one thing that you definitely have is faith. And it's one of the few things when you're laying in the dark and your family's all gone to bed, it's one of those things that it's all you have. We went to church and we said our prayers and, we were followers of Christ. But when you go into this deep, dark place, you learn how to lean into that faith.
That's good. Yeah.
And I see the picture up here. There were some dark moments. Even though I chose positivity, there were some dark moments. That's me and my mom. And that, I think, in that moment, I was crying out, why, God? Why me? Why me? But, and I thought to myself, is God punishing me? Did I do something? Was I too materialistic? Was I not kind enough? Am I getting punished for something? But the reality is God doesn't punish us, right? I mean, think of Jesus on the cross. He asked God to forgive the people who nailed him to the cross. Yep. So he's not punishing me.
Right.
But it took me some time to realize, you know what? God saw something in me, and he needed to use me for something bigger.
Yeah.
And that comes with time.
Yeah.
But, it was always there, right? But just over time, it's become more clear.
Yeah. I was telling you in the back that, if you're not a Fox 9 viewer, we'll forgive you. But
maybe.
As long as Courtney's still there at Fox 9, we'll still watch Fox 9, okay? We'll just say, great people. The way that I actually got to know Courtney was I would MC for the state fair and went and would just kind of get the crowd all excited. And they're called talent. And they were like, you're not allowed to talk to the talent. I'm like,
they told you that?
Oh, yeah. And they're like, they're talent. I'm like, if they're talent, then what am I?
Oh, you're talent.
I'm not talented. And so I was really timid at first, if you can imagine this. Like, I wanted to do my job and do it well and get the crowd excited and be like, yay! And then the talent would come out, and everybody was really excited about that. And the cameras would come on and all that. One of the things I noticed, though, was about you prior to any of this.
Right.
Because I did it the 2 years. Was just when people would come up, you would always take the time. You worked hard. There was times where it was like, hey, I gotta finish a story, and it's like, I gotta get this done, and then I can come out. And you engaged, and you connected with people. A lot of your coworkers, we were talking about this in the back. People like Ian Leonard, him and I were at the hospital. We walked out of the hospital room, and he was like, she needs prayer. You need to make sure that your church is praying. And I'm like, absolutely. And a great man of faith as well. And I love what he said about you. And I told you, I don't think you heard it before this moment, but one of the things that he said was, watch what she does with this. This won't keep her down. Watch what she does with it. And so to see you even bounce back, I mean, before you were even out of the hospital, you were walking, or at least moving around, And so it's just seeing how you've used this whole thing. Even though it's a tragedy, it's what you've walked through, saying, hey, how do I use this?
Yeah, Ryan and I pray every night. We say, God, please just tell us what we're supposed to do with this. Tell us how we're supposed to respond, how we're supposed to touch people. And it's funny because he answers you in little ways. It doesn't have to be massive, like, hey, I got you this speaking engagement in front of 50,000 people. No, it's like, it's not always like that. You know, the other day I was in the Wells Fargo building. I was going to an interview for work. And this woman, I could see she was kind of looking at me like, you know, she wanted to say something. And so I looked at her kind of like, do I know you? And she said, I just have to say hello. I follow you on social media, and what I'm going through in my life is so small compared to what you're going through. But your message that you put out there on social media helps me every day.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, you know, thank you, God. You know, you give me these messages that, you know, tell me that I'm doing it. I'm out there. I'm spreading hope and faith. And if I can spread hope and faith, even in the littlest ways, even if it's through an Instagram post, you know, that's so simple and that's so little. But if I can spread that, great. I'm also, you know, there's my friend Avery. She's 9 years old. You know, I do a lot of those things. You know, I visit people in the hospital. I, you know, mentor people. I'm there for people. I give them advice. And I've only been doing this for 7.5 months. Yep. But, you know, I help them every way that I can.
Yeah, schools. So you just did Morse by.
Mm-hmm.
Hospitals. You actually met Avery 2 months. Was it 2 months after?
2 months after my accident. It was funny because I walked into Mayo, and first thing she says, she looks at her mom and she goes, "Why is she on crutches?" I'm like, "Oh, sorry to disappoint you." Like, "Oh, God, it's a lot of pressure."
Speed up this recovery.
Yeah, like,
especially
whoa.
if you're going to encourage me.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It was like, what is this?
Good guy. Where's the hen?
Yeah.
No, I mean, just to see that. I mean, that's you with Avery just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, last weekend.
Snowstorm you avoided.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. That's something. Yeah, that's awesome. We shoveled, but you got to hang out in the sun. But you know, just to know that part of your story where you're going around and you're using the story, the situation that you have in front of you, and using it to make an impact in Avery's life, and you have Gia here, you know, just even the messages.
Gia's having more of an impact on me than I'm having on her. She's showing me how to do it.
It's cool just to watch how people are rallying around and just saying, hey, this is impacting for me. Like, thank you for sharing that story. Even on Instagram and social media, you're seeing people who are responding saying, wow, your story. And I think it's the way that you viewed it. And we talked a little bit about that, where just the view of, there's two trains of thoughts coming into the station. And it's like, which one are you going to get on? Because some people will have that train of thought where it's like, it's a doom and gloom, and I've got to do this. And one of the things that you kept talking about at Morris By, and you share quite often, is that choosing positivity and just choosing that.
Yeah. I mean, I always tell people your perspective will drive your outcome, right? It's the way you choose to see things, and that's huge.
Yeah. Talk about obstacles. You know, viewing this as a hurdle rather than that obstacle.
Yeah, right. I mean, you know, there's two different. You know, you have an obstacle in front of you, or you have, you know, a brick wall. And if you view it as an obstacle, yeah, it's going to be hard. You're going to have to go around. You're going to have to take a different path. But you can break through. Some people will come to that obstacle and go, yep, too hard. I better turn around and go back. Choose that. It might be harder, but choose to go around it. Choose to find a way around it. Because if you go to that obstacle and you say, nope, too hard, I'm just going to turn around and go back, you're missing all these opportunities to have impact. And I think that that's what's so cool to me is I hate that I had to lose my leg to, you know, have new purpose in life. But look at what I'm doing. You know, I'm at the state capitol, you know, pushing for a bill that will protect families on boats. And, you know, I'm seeing how hard it is to get something done in politics. But, and it's exhausting. It's so exhausting. I can't even guess how many hours I have spent at the Capitol, even before the session started, at lawmakers' homes, talking to them about this bill. But it's like, I know that it's going to change the outcome for somebody else. None of this is about me. I don't go to these hospital rooms. I don't go to the Capitol because it feeds my ego. I go because I feel like that's what God wants me to do.
Yeah. So you're just redeeming it, saying, hey, I'm going to give it back.
Totally.
And this is what I have, and this is what happened. So I'm going to give it back. And then however you can use it, here's my life. Use it if you can. You talk a lot about the three F's. Well, easy now.
Yeah, the three
Don't add
F's.
a fourth.
That's something I talk about a lot.
Don't add the fourth one in.
No. Although there
but-
were some of those moments in the first couple months.
Oh, I bet. Fire hydrants happen a lot. But faith, family, and friends.
Yeah, faith,
Not
family,
fire
and
hydrant.
friends.
That really helped you.
In that order.
Yeah, we were joking around where Shannon and I would be like, hey, Ryan, we would connect with Ryan and be like, hey, so when would be a good time to come by and see Courtney? Well, not this week. We got this family's coming in from California. This one's coming from Arizona. This one's coming from, I don't even know, North Pole or something. I mean, people were coming in from all over, and the place was constantly packed. One of the little things that just tells about the character of Courtney is, the room was just filled with flowers. And then you go around and you take your flowers with a missing leg to other rooms to give other patients flowers. So while you're trying to go through this whole thing, you're walking it out with everybody else.
Well, if I can spread that hope and that faith, right from, I was a few days after losing my leg, but I just felt like, hey, I have enough flowers. Why not spread that? And that can be that's a metaphor for so many things, right? I have all this to give. Why not share it with others? It's not just flowers.
Yeah. And it's your story. It's so much more than just that. And watching you walk through it. And since then, I've seen you on Instagram, snowboarding.
Yep.
Biking.
Yep.
Although the one biking without the leg, when Ryan first got you the bike.
Yeah.
The exercise, what kind of bike is that?
A Peloton.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
And so just biking, snowboarding, swimming, speaking in schools, visiting people in the hospital. To me, when I think about that, just the word redeemed, I see what you're doing. And man, God's saying, listen, I'm redeeming it. I'm going to take this situation that you find yourself in, and I'm going to turn it around. Just like the story of Joseph, God was like, I can redeem this. I can use this, but you've got to be willing to give it to me. And it's really cool. Both Shannon and I have talked about it. Just watching your faith grow, and just watching both you and Ryan grow from this, and where the enemy really, Joseph talks about it in the Genesis story in Genesis 50, where he's like, you intended to harm me. And there's so many times, Ryan, both of you guys, man, this could have set you guys back. This could have done so much damage to so many different levels.
Oh, yeah.
But in the end, it's literally, I'm watching the two of you go through this together. You put on Facebook how he's literally carried you through life.
He has. And it's interesting because I think, he was behind the wheel of that boat. There are some people who that would destroy their marriage. It was his fault. He was goofing around. He wasn't responsible. Whatever. Yeah. That would destroy your marriage. But I can tell you, I remember he came to me one night and he just put his chest, there was a lot of guilt. Ryan's a good man. Yeah. He's a way better man than I am, a woman.
I was like, I'm not going to go. Don't go there. Literally everything inside of me was like, don't go there, John, don't go there, John, don't go there. But then you all went there, so hey, you're a better woman than he is too.
Okay. Yeah. He's a good man. And he came to me one night and he just put his head on my chest, and I could just feel the guilt. I could feel the pain in him. And he didn't say anything, and I just said, I don't blame you. It's not your fault. Yeah. I love you, and I can tell you, I love him more today than I did the day that we married. 9 months before the accident, by the way. We were only married 9 months when it happened.
So you know, I wasn't invited and didn't do it. Talent.
Actually, I really would have, in hindsight, should have had you there, officiating the wedding.
It was where was it?
Mexico.
Yeah, I could have done that.
Yeah, I know you could have. But when you offered, I'd already hired and paid the gal that did it. So,
crossing it up.
Yeah. So I think that you have so many moments where I said, and this post you're talking about, I say this, it's like the devil's knocking on your door, and it really is, because there are so many things in your head, and the only thing it can be is the devil saying, God did this to you. If he loves you, why would he do this to you? You know, your husband did this to you. You know, that's the devil in there saying, come over to the dark side, right? And there are plenty of people who go through this, and they go there, you know, that it's such a strong temptation. Yeah. And when you have faith, family, and friends, when you start to sink into that dark place and you start to listen to that voice and say, do they have a point? They pull you out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's when having that group of people around you that's just cheering you on. Your sisters were awesome. They were fun to kind of be around and just, you know, spitting image. You know, you guys are just alike in just so many different ways and just
Except I'm still trying to get them to go to church.
Yeah. They're probably watching. We'll count this one. The Christmas and Easter only, the CEOs.
Yeah, so, exactly, totally.
I never knew you would see. Some of you will get that later and be like, I know what he meant now. And so, you know, just to see that, I mean, constantly, friends and family were always around. Co-workers were coming in and out. I'm just thinking through in my head just how that literally, you know, who you surround yourself with will determine the direction and even the quality of life that you live in.
Yeah, I mean, I said this to the kids last week, and I think it's so important for kids to know, you know, when you're growing and you're developing. As adults, it's a little easier for us to choose who we are around, but you are only as great as the people you surround yourselves with, right? So if you're surrounding yourself with someone who's, you know, I have friends who don't go to church, but I'm not gonna, I can't hang out with somebody who's like Antichrist, right. You know? I mean, like, you know, and those people who don't go to church, I talk to them about it, you know, and they're like, okay, yeah, I like that. Sounds kind of cool. Yeah, maybe. Okay, all right. But, you know, surround yourself with people who are also followers of Christ, people who will lift you up when you're down, people who will tell you when you want to say, I can't, people who say, no, yes, you can. Yeah. And that's what I had people when I said, I can't do this, it's too hard, they'd say, no, yes, you can. And we're coming out of that dark place because you're not staying there. We're not going to let you stay there. And that was my friends and my family. And I can honestly say, you know, there's only probably one friend that, you know, when this happened, you know, true colors kind of showed. And, you know, I kind of decided to move on in life without that person. But all my friends, besides that one person, I mean, they just rallied behind me and family. And like you said, people are flying in from everywhere. So you're only as great as the people that you surround yourself with. And I truly, truly believe that. Yeah,
that's a great time to plug small groups.
Yeah, there you go. Join your small group.
Our growth groups, man, that's, you know, we have some that are even this Sunday or tonight and all that stuff. But, you know, just having those people, that's why we do community groups and our small groups. The way that we do them here is because the thing is when, not if. If you're having a hard, no, it's when you have those moments, and we all have them in life, whether it's parenting, whether it's addictions, whether it's your past with pain, whether it's a tragedy, whatever it is, when we have those moments, there are people that are either going to pull you out of this or keep you in there and pull you deeper into it. And it's like you said, these are those defining moments that you get to see who's who in your life. And I think God allows sometimes those things to happen where you kind of get to see who's on what side. And you're like, dude, I would have never saw that. And probably now as you look back, you can be like, oh, man, that person was always like this. I just never really saw it, never really knew that. But then you have your family around just like, nope. Today's not that day. Today we're going to get up. Today we're going to do this. Today we're going to walk. And, you know, and you shared sometimes the story of when you got your leg, your prosthetic. And you thought, for sure, this is it. And I know you're determined. Like, you are like, I think the doctors and nurses had to be like.
Impatient is a better word for it.
I literally show up one day and you're talking on the phone to Ryan, bring my weights. You're in the hospital bed. I want my weights. If I just have to work out my arms, I'll do my arms. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is like a day or two after surgery and you're like, let's do Pilates or something. I don't know what you're thinking. Pilates is great. So you had that mindset, like, I'm going to do this. Where does that come from for you?
Well, I think I've always been a positive person, but I think you have faith, right? I mean, it's faith. It's you're digging deep, and you're going, I can do this because I have God on my side.
Yeah.
I can do this because I know He's going to guide me. He's not gonna lead me astray. Mm-hmm. So I really think it's that. I mean, I was always a positive person. I think that I'm probably one of the best people. I'm well equipped to deal with this.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have faith, then you're angry, you're wondering why.
Yeah.
But when you have faith, you know that there is a reason. There's something that you're meant to do. And we talked about this too. I in the hospital, I hated it when people would come in and you don't know what to say. And I wouldn't have known what to say. But they'd say, it's all part of God's plan. I as a follower of Christ, I'm like, okay, I don't know. I don't think the God that I love and worship isn't that evil that He would say, you know what? The day you were born, I knew that on September 15th, I was going to chop off your leg. Yeah. I mean, what? No. Nope. Right. The God I follow is not that evil. I think that it happened to me, and God stepped in and said, okay, I know that you're well equipped to deal with this, and I'm going to use you. And I just keep following His path that He lays forth for me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's one of those things where it's the same story of Joseph. This wasn't a part of his plan.
Right.
But he can use it. And I think that's the same thing. Whatever we've walked through in life, whatever you've gone through, whatever I've gone through, it wasn't. I mean, God's plan for me was not to be, and you guys, some of you know my story. At 14 years old, God wasn't like, yeah, that's going to be the guy that's going to get, hooked on drugs and have a drinking problem, and that's the guy. Yeah, that's part of my plan for him. Part of God's plan was to say, I'll use that. I'll use it. And to look at your story and say, you know what, I can use it. And it's the same thing He does all throughout the Scripture, but he does it even to this day. It's like, I can use that. But you've got to be willing to give it to me and allow me to use that part of your life, that part of your story, that part of your pain. And it hasn't always been easy.
No, and I think that when you look at it and you go, God did this to me, that's when you get in trouble.
Yeah.
That's when you're going to be angry. God didn't do this to you. This happened to you, and then God is using you.
Yeah.
And if you sit there angry, and if you think that He did this to you, it's going to destroy your relationship with Christ, and you're going to go down a really dark path.
Yeah. So now you talked a little bit about legislation and all that stuff. I'd love to kind of share with the church and viewers online. Now I'm interviewing you. It's a little bit different. So what is it? Tell me a little bit more about that. Talk to us.
Look, I'm the asker of questions.
I know. Why don't you ask your own question and answer it since you're talent?
I hate it when they call us that.
No, you don't.
I need a raise then.
There you go.
So talk about the legislation.
Yeah.
So in the weeks following our accident, Ryan obviously went to make an insurance claim. We had boat insurance, and he went to make a claim. We had a large liability policy, and my husband is like one of those people. He's a little paranoid. He's a little paranoid. Like it's like if there's an offer, it's like he buys the biggest plan, just in case. Oh my God! And I'm always like, dude, come on, let's get the smaller plan. No, you never know. So he insures everything that moves or has value in our home, and we had a full liability coverage on our boat with medical payments coverage. So he calls and he files the claim, and they say right away, sorry, sir, you're not covered. What? Of course I am. Nope, because she's your wife, you're not covered. So if the accident would have happened the summer before when we weren't married, I would have been covered. If it would have been my sister who was hurt, she was on the boat that day, she would have been covered. But because we fell in love, got married, we were not getting any of that coverage. And so Ryan and I went, what can we do? We started calling our family and friends. Every single person we know who owned a boat, check your coverage. We found out the hard way. And what we were finding is, first of all, nobody knew. that their family wasn't covered. Those are the people who are on your boat. You think you bought coverage, so everybody's covered for that freak accident moment. They didn't know that they weren't covered, and you couldn't buy a plan.
Wow.
It doesn't exist. You can't buy a plan that covers your family. So we said we got to do something. And so I've been at the Capitol working hard. It's really hard to get things done. I'm up against a multi-billion-dollar industry who is vehemently against my bill. Why, people ask? Because they don't want to pay out claims.
Right.
And they know who's on your boat. So, but we are still pushing hard. It's funny because I don't think the insurance industry has never been up against something like me. Like they
give me my weights.
They were not prepared for this. And guess what? I ain't going away.
Come on.
And the bill's not going to benefit me. You know, it's over for us.
Yep.
We'll figure out ways to, take care of all the added costs in our life now. But it's for the next family that goes through trauma. And that's why even though I didn't get a hearing, I'm still at the Capitol pushing to get this done. And there are ways to get it done this session. It'll be tough. But because boating season is here.
Yeah.
And there's going to be another trauma on the lake. It's not common. It doesn't happen often. But there will be another family who goes through this summer. And, they're going to really need that money from that insurance claim. This is a life-altering injury. So I'm just doing what I think anybody in my position would do. I'm using it for good.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to change the outcome for the next person.
Yeah, and just allowing God to redeem it. And the story of Joseph. Joseph says, you intended to harm me, but God intended this for good. And you'll see this up on the screen if we could put that verse up there. You and Bruno look awesome and amazing. But it says this at the end of that. You intended to harm me, but God meant it for good, to save the lives of many. That was Joseph's story. And then to hear what you're doing, and you say, oh, this is normal. This is what any normal person would do. And we talked about, I'm like, no, it's not. Not everybody does this.
I believe in the good in people, so.
Yeah. I've been pastoring for a while. Just kidding. Listen, that ain't true. Listen, you reported on half these. No, I'm just kidding. It's just that desire to know that you can make a greater impact in people's lives. And that's what redemption is all about, is that, when you go and you redeem something, you get something of greater value and you give that. And it's for that greater good. And schools and hospitals, and 2 months after, and just the other day you're there, and then you're at legislature, you're working your full-time job, and then you're at legislation, you're doing all this stuff, trying to pass it. For somebody, it doesn't impact you. Yeah. It has nothing to do with you. It's for the greater good. And that speaks a lot of you and your character. And Courtney, one of the reasons that I thought of you for today is actually when I was typing this message, I had a whole different plan set up and had this going in a different direction. And then I took a break, and I was scrolling through Instagram, and you posted Romans chapter 5. And I actually just got done writing in my section of notes. I have like Romans chapter 5 and verse 3 and 4, and I have it all set there. And then you posted that same thing, and I'm like, oh, okay, I need to reevaluate this whole thing and see if Courtney can come in. And again, it was one of those like, hey, would you mind doing it? And it's like, absolutely, tell me when. And so we appreciate you for that. But that verse says this. It's up on the screen. You guys can see this. Romans chapter 5. Verse 3 and 4, it says, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, character, and character, hope. What does that verse speak to you?
Everything. Through suffering, perseverance, which I have, through perseverance, character, hello, and through that hope. It just speaks for itself.
Yeah.
To me, and it's a verse that really speaks to me, because it's like, no matter what you're going through, on the other side of this, there is hope.
Yeah.
And that hope you can spread to others.
I like that. That hope you can spread to others. Here's what I would say from a scriptural standpoint, and we've said this before, we are God's plan A when it comes to reaching other people with Christ. And then it's our responsibility to bring the hope of Christ into their world. And instead of just sitting back and thinking, well, this was good for me, man, you've leaned in, and you were just even on a podcast, and you even talked about how that changed, and now rather than just having faith in Christ, now you're leaning into it. And that's what, I think that's what all of us need to be able to do, is lean in and say, hey, listen, I need to use this thing. I need to utilize what God has given me, and this salvation, this forgiveness, this ability to love like never before. I need to use that and lean in, push in on that. And that's where it's developed that character and that hope in you. And I wrote this down, that God steps into our pain, and this process generates that perseverance. It develops our character and gives us this hope. And that hope is that God can turn what the enemy meant for bad into something good, to save the lives of many. He did it for Joseph. He did it for David. He did it for many of us here, but man, he did it for you. Amen. And so I just want to thank you so much. Would you guys give a big round of applause to Courtney?